Hello everybody. I am cooking supper and I don't make bread most of the time with my supper, but I'm wanting some homemade buttermilk biscuits for supper this evening because I have made pear preserves, and so I'm wanting to eat these pear preserves with some buttermilk biscuits. So I'm going to show y'all how I make my buttermilk biscuits. All right, here we go. We've got my bowl here and the sifter. Now what we want to do is put 2 cups of self-rising flour in the sifter. We're going to sift that real good. And the reason you want to sift it is it makes your flour, it adds air to your flour, and so that will help make your biscuits light and fluffy. And also, if there are any lumps in the flour, it will get those lumps out. All right, almost, there we go. We've got that. Now I'm going to put just a little more flour in my sifter because I'm going to have to use some more flour in just a little bit when we get on into this recipe. And I'll just set that right up there like that. Now the next thing we want to do is add some shortening. So I've got this spoon here, and I'm going to dip out 5 spoons of shortening and put in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's got my shortening measured out there. Now, we want to cut this shortening into the flour. And most people, for this process, they will just take their hands and they'll stick it in there and just squish it all up and break it all up with their hand, but I cannot stand to do that. So I take a fork and I cut this shortening into my flour. And if you have a pastry knife, I believe that's what it's called is a pastry knife, you can use that as well to cut your shortening into your flour. Now this bowl that I'm using here, I want to tell y'all about it. This bowl was passed down to me. It was my great-grandmother's bowl, and my great-grandmother was called Big Mama. And I never knew Big Mama. She died before I was old enough to know her. But this was her bowl, and then her daughter, which is my granny, Queen Martha Stewart Cochran, that's my granny, she's passed away too. This granny had this bowl, and then when granny died, my daddy had this bowl, and then daddy died, and now I have this bowl. So this is what I use to make my biscuits in, and I get to remember my ancestors and think about them as I'm making my biscuits. Okay, we've got this cut in really good. Can y'all see that? All right. Now, we want to add some buttermilk. And I always use whole buttermilk. There is low-fat buttermilk and there is non-fat buttermilk, but I always use whole buttermilk to do this. Okay, I've got to get me a measuring cup for my buttermilk. All right, so I need to add 1 cup of buttermilk. Now I'm going to shake this buttermilk up because it has a tendency to separate when it's just sitting in the refrigerator, so you want to shake it all up real good. I'm going to add 1 cup of buttermilk. There we go. Let's scrape it out of the cup. All right, now I'm going to take my fork again, rinse my hand off. Okay, I'm going to take my fork again and I'm going to stir this buttermilk up into the shortening in the flour. Y'all may hear something bubbling in the background. I've got some beans on the stove cooking, some snap beans, and I've got some ratatouille in the oven baking. And this is the first time I've ever made ratatouille. I had only heard of it just like a week or so ago. One of my friends on Facebook, she had posted it on her page, and I was like, oh, that looks really good. I think I'm going to try that. All right, so I've stirred it up with my fork. I'm just scraping my fork off. Now, just want to make sure that everything's combined good here with my spoon. Scraping the sides, scrape the bottom. And I'm going to pull all of the dough over to one side of this bowl, just like this. And this is where I'm going to put some more flour. Okay, let me add a little flour. I'm putting some flour on the bottom of this bowl to keep the dough from sticking to the bottom of the bowl. Now I'm going to scrape it all over to the other side and do the same thing. Now I didn't really have a recipe, a measured out recipe for my biscuits for years, but a friend of mine, well, two friends of mine, Sandy and Esther, they go to church with me. They had a really good biscuit recipe, and so that is what I go by. They actually, had it all measured out and everything. And so that is what I'm using today, and that's what I go by. All right, let's put some flour on this side. All right, let's roll this dough back around to the middle, kind of. There we go. We're getting ready to make our biscuits now, okay? Let me put a little flour on the top of this dough now. Just trying to get flour on all sides of it so that it won't stick to my hands so badly when I go to rolling it out. All right, here we go. Here's where we're at so far. Okay, now you want to just get you a piece of dough, roll it around in the flour, take it in your hands and roll it in your hands. Now this is the way my mom rolled out her biscuits. I know some people will put the dough out on a floured surface, and they'll cut it out with a biscuit cutter or something. But this is the way Mama done hers, and so this is the way I do mine. So you know what though? I forgot to do something. I forgot to grease this pan here. Hang on. Okay, here's my shortening. You get a little bit on this piece of paper towel. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to get it all over my hands. So we'll put some shortening on this. This is a griddle. This is a cast iron griddle here. That's what I'm going to cook them on. And I need to preheat my oven. I just thought about that. So let me go over here, turn my oven on. And I've got my oven on bake, 400. All right, let's get these biscuits back over here. We're rolling these biscuits out. And we'll have this out on the griddle, ready to go in just a couple of minutes. Biscuits only takes 3 ingredients: flour, shortening, and buttermilk. That's all you have to make biscuits. All right, just rolling them out here. You're about got it done. Got one more after this one, and then we'll have it all here on the griddle. Here's my last biscuit right here. Roll it in the flour. Starts trying to stick to your hands, just roll it in the flour again. Okay, there's our biscuits right there. There they are. Now I'm just going to press them down just slightly with my fingers. My mom always done this, took these 3 fingers and would press them down slightly, and that's just to keep them from rising up too thick. Okay, let's turn around here. Here's my double ovens right over here. Now I've got my ratatouille cooking in the top oven, so I'm going to have to use the bottom oven for my biscuits. There we go. We got them in there. They'll need to cook about 25 or 30 minutes, and then we'll pull them out and I'll show them to you. All right, everyone, our biscuits are done. Let's get them out of the oven and see how they look. Here we go. This is our buttermilk biscuits right here. I'll try to slide them off on this plate. And we have us fresh bunch of homemade buttermilk biscuits.